The wait is finally over, ladies and gentlemen. Resident Evil Village is finally out. With it, we embark on a new but subsequent journey with Ethan Winters, the mysterious protagonist from Resident Evil 7, the predecessor Resident Evil installment to this game, which unveils some of the mysteries of the last game. Hi folks, I'm R, your narrator. This video contains spoilers. With that in mind, let's begin. Resident Evil Village is a subsequent installment to Resident Evil 7, which I made a few videos about, which I will put the cards above if you wish to update yourself with what happened until now. Resident Evil Village is yet another game from the series, which players experience in first-person perspective, which also inherits some elements from the much beloved Resident Evil 4, which was one of the games in the series I played non-stop until I finished it when it came out. This game is available on majority of the gaming platforms, including PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. And with that said, let's get right into the video. In here, I will go over the story and summarize it for you. So be in short, whatever dialogue or information you missed in the game will be mentioned here, if they had any kind of significance to the story. I will also attempt to theorize and explain some of the more ambiguous sides of the story, but I will briefly touch on them, as explaining and theorizing about characters, locations, and other elements would take several videos on their own. Alright, let's go. The game starts on a creepy story told by Mia, Ethan's wife, whom he saved from the previous game from the baker's house. This time around, they have a child called Rose, up to a year old, as they seem to have been trying to move on from the past tragedies, which took place 3 years ago. The main plot of the story Mia recites is that the girl in the story takes more and more without considering what they will cost in return. Ethan objects to Mia that the story is too creepy for Rose, and Mia should be careful due to their past trauma, which Mia suddenly lashes out saying that she didn't forget, seeming a little different and insecure, worried that she might get possessed again. Ethan takes Rose to her bed and shows his affections to her, depicting how protective and loving he is towards his daughter. A great way of storytelling by the game, as they focus on more showing than telling. This trend continues as we get hints that Mia and Ethan are in a house far from their home back in USA. The story Mia read, she insisted to be a famous local fairy tale and that she cooks a food called Chobra de Legume, which she says to be a local food too, which Ethan responds that she has gone full native. After a bit of research, I found this dish is found in Romania. Therefore, it seems that the reformed Blue Umbrella Corp, with Chris Redfield working for them, has taken both Mia and Ethan in a witness protection type of house to protect them from the past incident. But why the Umbrella Corp has taken them is still a mystery to this point. We then learn that Chris did indeed take them here and that they received military training just to be safe for future unpredictable incidents. Air quotes. As we know, things will indeed go sideways. Just as Mia and Ethan start a conversation that Ethan is cautious and says that we need to be careful, while Mia says that they need to move on and relax, Mia gets shot through the window. Ethan takes cover and crawls down while Mia gets shot multiple times before she collapses into the floor. Chris then arrives and repeatedly shoots Mia in the head, presumably finishing her off with a silenced pistol. Chris then takes Rose, to which Ethan complains,
"I said get your hands off her!"
Ethan, no.
Which results in him getting hit with the butt of a gun. We are then treated to a nicely animated flashback while Ethan is passed out, where Mia is a completely different person who is constantly worried about something that she seems to want to tell Ethan, but she can't. Ethan then snaps back to reality to a phone ringing, where he finds himself in snow with bodies of soldiers lying around. He picks up the phone meant for the soldier, asking if the package is secured before the line drops. As he gets up, he sees a black SUV flipped on its side, and he embarks on walking through a dark forest, entering a location that says "Do not enter." As he moves further through the dark, creepy forest, he finds a little cabin which he enters. He finds a picture of a religious figure whom we learn to be Mother Miranda. He leaves the cabin to find himself near a village, with a castle atop the hill, with the sky brightening up. As he investigates more, he finds empty houses as if they have been just abandoned. Ethan then suddenly encounters a cowering, scared man with a shotgun. He seems fidgety and on edge. He moves around, scared of something or some things, before he hands Ethan a pistol and gets taken by a hand through the roof. Ethan then himself gets pulled by this monstrous hand, but down the floor. He finds corpses upon corpses in the basement. Ethan then gets attacked by a lichen and gets 2 of his fingers bitten off, as if he didn't suffer enough stabbing and dismemberment in the previous game. I'm really starting to emphasize with Ethan now. A mildly shocked Ethan, who's not new to these kind of things, uses the gun that was given to him by the old man and shoots down the lichen. After plowing through a lot of lichens, Ethan then suddenly gets shot by an arrow which demobilizes him. He gets surrounded by lichens, while a massive lichen with a massive hammer gets a good glimpse of him. Just when Ethan is about to be rested in peace, mysterious bells ring and all of the lichens leave, letting Ethan alone. A mysterious witch-like old lady appears and then leaves, whom Ethan follows. The old woman tells Ethan that he is Rose's father, and since Mother Miranda brought Rose to the village has fallen into darkness. He finds a little temple where they have Mother Miranda's image hung up in the middle, while the other main 4 houses are on the side. House Dimitrescu, House Heisenberg, House Beneviento, and House Moreau, whom we will discuss more in depth in later videos. Ethan then soon meets the cynical Leonardo and his daughter Elena. They lead Ethan to Luisa's house, where she claims to have been a safe place for centuries. In this house remain some survivors, who seem to have all been scarred and scared. They all pray to Mother Miranda in hopes of her saving them, a type of prayer that seems to be traditional in their village.
Hear our voice, together as one in reverence. We call on thee within the endless dark.
Then suddenly, Leonardo turns into a lichen, killing everyone in the house, apart from Ethan and Elena, who managed to evade him. This causes some of the lanterns to fall and engulf the house in flames. A few minutes later, Elena and Ethan climb to the highest floor of the house, where they find Leonardo asking for help, seeming to be back to himself, standing on a fragile wood plank. Elena goes to his aid, but the plank collapses, making them both fall into the fire, presumably dying. A disappointed Ethan voices his opinions and where he stands in this whole situation, and goes further in order to find his daughter. Going into the open field, he sees Mother Miranda in distance, chokeholding a villager before mercilessly finishing him off. Therefore, this Mother Miranda is not as benevolent as the village seems to think. Ethan manages to open the garden gates of the castle, reminiscing the words Elena said before her death. Nothing awaits but blood and death in the castle. As Ethan approaches the cellar of the castle, he encounters Heisenberg, who can control metal telekinetically.
Mother Miranda's gonna love you.
Heisenberg takes Ethan to Mother Miranda, where they have a round table of evils, who discuss how they should kill Ethan. Lady Dimitrescu suggests to kill him privately in the castle and torture him, while Heisenberg says that he wants to put up a show and publicly torment Ethan for everyone to watch. Mother Miranda sides with Heisenberg's decision, despite Lady D's objections. Heisenberg gives Ethan a countdown, letting him have some lead time to be chased. You know, the typical evil guy plan, which always backfires. They're so bored of killing and torturing that they want to entertain themselves somehow. Ethan manages to evade a set of booby traps and cuts his handcuffs. Continuing on his search, Ethan encounters the Duke, a mysterious merchant man who we will talk about more in depth in later videos. Ethan then enters the castle, named after Lady D, which means it's hers. First thing we stumble upon is a Victorian era type of painting of 3 young women, who are named Bella, Cassandra, and Daniela, whom are all the daughters of Lady D, the vampires, which insinuates they have been alive for a very long time. Not long after, Ethan then meets the 3 vampire daughters of Lady D, who are even more psychopathic than Heisenberg. They take Ethan straight to Lady D, who gives him a typical villain talk. They talk amongst themselves how they want to devour Ethan, but Lady D says first they need to inform Mother Miranda. They hook Ethan up from his hands and very typically just leave him on his own, which he manages to escape, of course. You may ask how, though? Well, it's far from comfort. He literally rips his hands open from the site of the piercings by the hooks.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
Ethan pours some holy water, what I presume to be, over his hands, and he's all dandy and dory. We then read some memoirs of a person who worked in the castle in 1958. He explains how he was the only man working in the castle. He explains that the daughters killed a maid right in front of him and that they were adamant that they won't bite. Then finally, the last memoir suggests that the man is taken down into a cellar, presumably where all men are taken, to be enslaved, mindless vampires. Ethan then goes deep into the cellar, where he finds medieval tools of torture and encounters some of the enslaved vampires. After being chased by some of the daughters, Ethan finally faces off one of them and kills them, by the aid of an open window, as suggested in the man's memoirs in 1958. They seem to be allergic to open windows, and by that, I mean they will become vulnerable to kill. Ethan eavesdrops on Lady D having a phone conversation and hears that Mother Miranda only cares about a mysterious ceremony, which Lady D is not too fond of, but doesn't say anything against Mother Miranda in front of her. But as soon as the phone call drops, Lady D lashes out.
Oh! To hell with the ceremony! That man will pay for what he's done.
Ethan finds some of Lady D's memoirs, which I'm sorry to conclude, but sounds like she's a completely spoiled brat. She complains that she's better than all of the houses, she has been given eternal life, the castle, and obedient daughters by Mother Miranda. Why is she treated the same? She should be treated better. Damn it! I had high hopes for Lady D. I think a lot of us did. I guess personality wins over everything else. And she doesn't seem to fit the bill, unfortunately. Lady D finds Ethan and throws him down in the cellar, through broken floors. As Ethan tries to escape, Lady D slices off Ethan's right hand, like hot knife through butter. This is probably bringing back memories to Ethan, as he says similar things to the last game. Lady D also says similar things to Ethan, as she did in her memoirs.
You'll be sliced to ribbons.
Lady D sets on chasing after Ethan before he collects his severed hand. Ethan then pours some water over where his hand used to be and puts the severed hand there and then just turns it a little bit, which starts functioning as if he's a robot with his part plugged back in. Ethan dismisses the fact that he performed a miracle just now and utters, "Good." Like, what? Is he in a dream or reality? Because this looks very surreal. Ethan then stumbles upon a book which explains about what the flies that compile the daughters are. They apparently create human forms when they get together. They are carnivorous and can reproduce by laying eggs inside a host. They are also susceptible to cold temperatures. If the temperature drops below 10 degrees Celsius, they would go into a dormant state. Therefore, the daughters might be nothing but a collection of these flies, and that is why they don't like open windows. Cold can make them vulnerable. Not a great place to live then, if you ask me. They would be better off in a hot, exotic island than looking all gloomy and doomy. Certainly a strange choice of location to live in. Ethan then takes on another daughter and destroys her. Ethan escapes Lady D and then suddenly encounters the Duke again, in one of the rooms in the castle. Yeah, the Duke is as cryptic as he can get. I'll theorize about him in no time. Ethan then takes on the last daughter and finishes her off. Ethan then learns about a medieval dagger that is coated with a specific poison that can kill monsters and demons. He finds it in a chapel and uses it to stab Lady D in an exchange where Lady D stabs Ethan with her claws too. Lady D then transforms into a massive overshadowing monster with wings. There are a few funny exchanges in the battle where Lady D says this, and Ethan says this.
Looks like your outside matches your inside.
Nice touch. Nice touch indeed. Ethan manages to kill Lady D, and they both fall from the top of the castle to the ground floor, where Ethan stands up without a scratch. Is it me, or is Ethan like Superman? Not much later, Ethan sees the old witch again, who tells Ethan that Rose is to be sacrificed. A life for life. And we find umbrella signs on the house sigils. Ethan stumbles upon the Duke once more, where he tells Ethan that Ethan is holding his daughter in his hand, a flask with dirty water he picked up earlier in the castle. He wipes the flask and reads the label saying Rosemary's Head. But the Duke says if you go to a house with a red chimney, you could still save your daughter, even though she's been decapitated. He also tells Ethan that Rose has very unique powers. After collecting some feather, the Duke continues on that there are 4 flasks in total. The other 3 are with the other 3 lords of the village, who serve under Mother Miranda. Donna Beneviento, the dollmaker, Moreau, the twisted manfish, and Heisenberg, the most dangerous, who conducts experiments in his factory. When Ethan asks Duke why he's helping him, he simply answers, "It's in the nature of our customer care service," which means there are more of them there. Ethan then goes to the depths of the mist, where the house Beneviento is located. He has some hallucinations there of Mia and Rose and stumbles upon Beneviento's grave, whom died at the age of 9 in 1996, with the grave engraving suggesting that she is free from flesh. If you thought the castle was creepy, wait for Donna. Donna is one creepy person that presumably can get in your head. When Ethan enters House Beneviento, he finds the next flask containing Rose's legs on the doll we met before, Angie. When he tries to take it, things become pitch black and he loses his gun, presumably going into a surreal world. In the room, there lies a female doll in human shape, resembling Mia, having a picture of her and her wedding ring. Ethan then encounters Donna, who controls all the dolls with her most used doll, Angie, with the bridal dress. Ethan repeatedly stabs Angie the doll on several encounters, which turns out to be Donna herself, who made Ethan hallucinate. Donna apparently was disfigured as a kid, which resulted in her isolating herself. Her father made Angie for her as company, which she kept by her side till now. There is more information about her, which I will talk about in another video. Ethan then heads to Moreau's Reservoir. In there, he finds Rose's arms. Moreau tells Ethan that Miranda wants Rose to reincarnate her own dead baby. That's what the old witch meant by life for life. Ethan then suddenly meets Chris, who tells him they're here for a purpose and saves Ethan when a monstrous fish tries to attack them in the boathouse. This monstrous fish seems to be connected to Moreau in some way. Ethan manages to kill this fish and goes on to finally collect the last flask, which is Rose's torso. After placing the flasks in a pedestal kind of thing, Ethan manages to create a new path by raising a bridge, which leads directly to Heisenberg's factory. In a turn of events, Ethan finds a secret room where pictures of everyone is hanging. Heisenberg then shows up and says that he's being played by Mother Miranda to see if Ethan is strong enough to become part of the family, which means sacrificing her serving lords or children as she likes to call them. Heisenberg suggests to Ethan that they can together use Rose, who is apparently very powerful, to kill Miranda. Ethan refuses and faces Heisenberg's anger. As Ethan goes further into the factory, he finds the outcomes of some of Heisenberg's experiments. Man mended with machine, creating some really innovative high-tech monsters. Heisenberg then continues to explain that Miranda took some broken children like himself and the other lords, locked them away in the village to serve Miranda for decades. Ethan then suddenly meets Chris trying to repair a tank-looking vehicle. Chris explains the woman they tried to kill in this house was not Mia, but Miranda shape-shifting into Mia. It seems as if she still survived and all the lords and monsters in the village are her work. She's simply gone insane. Chris explains more that she is a bioweapon and the mold is still in play, causing all the crazy stuff happening. Ethan takes on a transformed Heisenberg and destroys him. Right after, Miranda shows up disguised like Mia. She then gets back to her original shape and explains what is happening, while transforming back into different shapes, including the old witch woman. She explains that Rose is the true form of Evelyn from the previous game. Rose is powerful enough to have absolute control over the mold, causing absolute havoc and a lot more, controlling people's minds, have powers, immunity, and much more. She says that Rose will grow to fully control masses, and that Miranda should have her. She explains the mold includes all of them, including Ethan. She continues whether Rose was born naturally, and that she used Ethan to understand Rose presumably better. Miranda takes Ethan's heart quite literally, and presumably kills him. We then learn by Chris as he goes on a monologue that they tried to extract Miranda's body and also took Ethan's and Rose's to confirm if they're infected or not by Miranda. But it turned out that Miranda wasn't dead and made the SUV crash. We briefly take control of Chris, who takes down Lycans like a badass. We soon learned that the source of the mold, which was found in the baker's residence, was in fact from here. As Chris dives deeper into the village, he finds Mia inside a dungeon cell, who says she was experimented on. Mia says that Chris is wrong, that Ethan is dead, he's very special to be dead. And guess what? She's damn right. We get back to Ethan, who is very alive still. He sees Evelyn, who tells him that Ethan was always dead, asking him why he didn't find it strange how he survived after getting hurt so much. This explains how Ethan could simply rip his hands, just put back his detached hand, and more without much burden. Evelyn tells Ethan that he was murdered by Jack 3 years ago, that Ethan is nothing but mold. Ethan was the cause of infecting Mia and bringing to life a child born from a mold. Ethan snaps back to reality and finds himself in the Duke's moving cart, taking Ethan to Miranda. He asks Duke who or what he is, but he simply answers that he doesn't even know that. Probably a product of the mold or megomycete. As I said, let's leave it for another video. Ethan finds Miranda performing the ceremony, but her daughter, Ava, doesn't actually come to life, and it's Rose all over again. Ethan then destroys Miranda and retrieves Rose, at which point he finds himself crystallizing too. Just how every lord and monster was dying in the village as well, similar to how people died back in Baker's residence. Therefore, it seems as if Miranda was the source of it all, and killing her would destroy the root of mold, or at least monsters linked to her. Chris comes to Ethan's rescue, but as it's too late already, Ethan gives Rose to Chris and bids him farewell in an emotional scene. Chris in the helicopter then says that they should head to BSAA's headquarters as someone has to pay. We skip forward to a grown Rose now, heading to Ethan's grave. When talking to her deceased dad, a secret agent, presumably working for Chris or his organization, shows up and calls Rose Evelyn, jokingly, which Rose doesn't take too lightly and threatens the agent by saying that she can do things that Chris doesn't even know, which, through his telecom, another agent says that they have a clear shot, to which the agent says to stand down, and emphasizes with Rose, which means she's too strong for them to relax around her, and she's always under observation. He takes Rose away in a black SUV, presumably to Chris, and then the game ends. And that was one of the longest and in-depth stories I've ever seen. There were a lot of antagonists and deep lore which I plan on theorizing on later videos. Hope you folks enjoyed this video. If you did, stay tuned for more by hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your host R. Till the next video, have a fantastic day.